me. It was because I felt like, and I went north from there. I did not go to California. And God did not see fit to tell me why I couldn't go to California. He didn't. For 10 years, in 2003, I was in a church. Actually, that's not, no. In 1998, I was in a church in Medford, Oregon. Ashland. We went up to prophesy from Mount Ashland, because they believed in prophesying from the high places. Let me tell you something. If you ever get that revelation, go and prophesy over Friday Harbor from the highest places. You'll see transformations happen. And we prophesied over California. And I said, God, why won't you end up going there? And he said, have the church drive you just over the border. I was like, okay. And they drove me just over the border, the first exit, turned around and came back. But as I was driving, as they were driving, I was riding over the border, I saw what seemed like a dark light. If you can picture that. It's like outside right now would be a dark light. And because it was like, but it was midday. It was like noon when we did this. And the sun was shining, and it was gorgeous. There was no smog. I thought maybe it's smog, and it wasn't smog. That's Northern California, like Mount Shasta. There's no smog up there. Down in LA, there's lots, but not there. And I was like, what am I seeing? And he brought back a scripture that said, if your light be darkness, how dark is it? I was like, God, what does this mean? He says, what do you see in Nevada? I was like, well, gambling, prostitution, drugs. He says, where is it hidden? I was like, it's not hidden. Everybody knows you can go to California. You can go to Nevada and do all of these things. I mean, they tout it in some places, some circles. You can go to an actual brothel in Nevada, and it's legal. And it's like, they always talk about it on the news, on TV shows. And I said, that's what I see. And he said, what do you see in California? And I thought for a minute. I said, what should I see? Because I thought, I better ask him. He says you see the same things. You see gambling is there, drugs are there, prostitution is there, but it's all carefully hidden. And I don't want you touched by that hypocrisy. And I was like, whoa. And he had to go back. And in 2003, I was sitting in my easy chair in my house. We just moved into a year before that. And I was sitting there. God spoke to me. He says, remember what I told you about California? He said, yeah, I couldn't go there. He says, now. And I'm like, I get to go to California? Disneyland! and I think, ministry, all the places I go minister. And because I go for many, many years, I've gone to share my testimony, which I'll share with you in a little while, in a few minutes, to all the Full Gospel Businessmen's Fellowships. And I've gone to literally hundreds of their chapters, and I'm president of the Issaquah, Washington chapter. It's actually called Bellevue, Washington, but there's none in Bellevue, so we meet in Issaquah. But the Issaquah, Washington chapter of the Full Gospel Businessmen's Fellowship, and we meet there. And so I got to go to all these different places, but God told me, before you go anywhere, you have to go to Tulare. Tulare, what's in Tulare? So I found out there's a visitation that's happening in Tulare, California, a place called Jubilee Christian Fellowship that had decided they were going to have 24/7 praise and worship. And it had been going on for a number of years. And I would describe this church as being a very holy church. And I don't mean H-O-L-Y. I mean holes in the wall holy. I mean there were holes in the walls, holes in the carpets, holes in the pastor's pants. But they didn't care about the outward appearance. They cared about Jesus. And this place was anointed. I went there, and I got there on, I believe, on Sunday morning. And I spent the first half of the service just laying there laughing and rolling in God's arms. The second half crying. The third half just rolling and being loved on by God. And that's how it felt. The third half of the service. That's exactly how it felt. And it just went on, and it didn't stop. And it went on all day, and then it went on all night. And my wife came down a couple weeks later, because I was able to take the month and go down there. And she came down a couple weeks later, and when she came down, she came to the first place, to Tulare, California first. I made sure that was the first place she went to. Before she came in, she was drunk in the spirit. Walking along the side of the building, she was drunk in the spirit. And
could hardly make it up the steps.
The reason why God had visited this place is because of prayer and worship. because of praise and worship and prayer and their dedication to Jesus. Now I'm going to share a bunch of different stuff with you tonight. Some of it might blow you away. Some of it might have you wondering. Some of you, you might actually disagree with me when you first hear it. For example, do you know that you don't have to please God? It's absolutely true, isn't it? You do not have to please God. Did you know that? You know why?